Good afternoon. I'm Councilwoman Linda Barnes Caldwell, and I would like to welcome you to our first community forum for 2020. Today, our topic is absentee voting, and our special guest is Michelle Feynman from the Election and Voters Registration Board of Lake County, Indiana. We have a few residents of the 5th District present today, and we're also doing the meeting via Zoom. So at this time, I'm going to turn the meeting over to Michelle Feynman.
So mostly what we're talking about today is absentee voting, but in order to absentee vote, you must be a registered voter. So there are a number of different ways you can register to vote, and you can do it at the BMV when you apply for services. You can also do it online at indianavoters.com, as well as you can do it by mail by submitting an application. Registration closes 30 days prior to the election. So in this case, it's going to close on Monday, October 5th. Once you're a registered voter, you then can vote. And so we have a number of different ways of voting. You have in-person voting, which means you're going to vote at your polls on election day. We have by mail, which means a ballot is going to come to your home and you can vote in the privacy of your own home. We also have travel board, and that's where a Democrat and Republican, a bipartisan team, will come to a place of confinement and they will vote you on an actual voting machine. And so with those comes different applications that you have to fill out. So first we'll talk about the travel board. We put it on a yellow sheet of paper, and what this means is that you are confined or you're caring for a confined voter. The voter fills out the top section, and then we will go to like a nursing home, a hospital. It could be your own place of your own home. And again, a Democrat, Republican will come to your home with an actual voting machine. And we like that because even though you're confined, it's sometimes difficult to vote on a Scantron ballot card. So by using the voting machine, you have more options. And our voting machines are 100% ADA compliant, meaning if someone is visually impaired, they can also put on a set of headphones and listen to the actual candidates, and it will read to you. And so that can also happen when you do the travel board. Now, the nice thing about travel board is the deadline for voting by this is noon the day before election. So say you were driving down the street and you had a car accident and you broke both your legs and you're still in the hospital. We will come to the hospital and vote you. You simply fill out the form, ask one of the nurses or aides to fax it or email it into us, and then we will send out a team at noon that day to vote you. So that's really good to know that in the event of an emergency, you do have options. Now, another option is voting by mail. Now, in the primary, because COVID was so high, they did not require you to have a reason for voting. So it was a no-fault reason in the primary. The state has not extended that at this point in time. So as of right now, you would still need to mark a reason for voting. Now there are 12, I believe about 12 reasons on here, and almost any of these can apply to someone. One of the easiest one is I may not have transportation to the polls on election day. Now at any given day, any of our cars may break down. So we may not have transportation. It might also mean that you're working outside the county on election day, that you're over the age of 65, that you're a confined voter, that you may be working your regular place of employment on election day, that you're working the polls on election day, that you're a military, also if you're a sex offender and can't go to a polling place because it's a school. There's a number of different reasons on here. So at this point in time, a voter, and these are accepted right now, would fill in their name and address. In a primary, you would select your party affiliation, which we are going into the general, so you do not need to select that. You would select your reason and sign it. And these can be submitted right now. We will begin mailing ballots to your home if you apply on September 19th and every day thereafter. So once we receive the application, the election board gets this, and we approve it by looking you up and making sure you're a registered voter, you would then get a ballot in the mail. And within this ballot are going to be a number of things. As voters, you want to look at everything that's in here. One of the first thing is your voter's Bill of Rights. And it tells you what your rights are as a voter and what to be looking for on the paperwork that you receive. You will also receive a list of instructions. Again, telling you what is in here and how to match them up. In essence, you would take the list of the candidates, and next to each candidate's name is a number. You'd find their number, and on the Scantron card, you would match up that number and color it in. We ask you to do it in pencil, kind of like your SAT test, where it would pick up the lead. Know that if you do it in ink, the machine will still pick it up. And for those that are concerned about it, you can go do it in ink and then go over it with a pencil. And that is sufficient. One thing you definitely want to look for is on the back of the card, there should be 2 initials on here. Without those 2 sets of initials next to my name, this ballot card is void. So if you were ever to receive one and it only had 1 set, you should call the election board and say, my ballot is defective, and send me a new one. You also receive a secrecy envelope. Now, it's not a true envelope, it's more a sleeve. But once you make the selections of finding the candidates and coloring them in on the card, you would take the ballot card, insert it into the sleeve, which is the secrecy envelope, put it inside the mailed ballot envelope. You would seal it. Now, very important on here is when you receive this, we'll have a label with your name and address on it. It is extremely important to sign it. This election alone, we had over 200 of them come back without a signature. Without a signature for us to verify from your application to your ballot that the signature is the same, it would be voided. So that brings up another important point. A lot of times when we're doing applications, our signature might be sloppy, and then when they get the ballot, they do a really nice, clean signature. We do match up those signatures on there. So try to be precise when signing that you're signing the same way. And that's extremely important because, again, if the signatures don't match, the ballot could potentially be rejected. So another important point on this, once you sign it, you would deposit this in the US mail, or a member of your household can deliver it to the election board. Do not ever give this to anyone else. And sometimes someone thinks they're doing a good deed, maybe coming to visit you, and you say, hey, when you're going out to the government center, can you take this for me? That is considered a felony. So only the US Postal Service can handle this, the election board, and a member of your same household can deliver this for you. So please be careful on that, not to give it to anybody else. The postage is fully paid on here, so all you do is deposit it in the post office. We must receive this by election day at noon. And if you don't mind, I'll go ahead and go into another way of them doing it on election day. So let's say this was still in our possession and election day comes about. Oh my gosh, I forgot to send it in. And it's election day. So there's not enough time for me to drop it in the mail because we know it's going to take a few days to get there. You also have the option of you could take this ballot to the polling place on election day or the early voting, and you can forfeit this to them. You're going to give it back to them and say, I forfeit it and I want to vote on the voting machine. And that is completely fine. If, per se, you never got the ballot, you filled out the application, but your ballot never came to you in the mail, you can still go to the polls on election day. You're going to fill out a form there. It's called a PRE-5, P-R-E-5, and you would sign it attesting that you never received this. And then you could vote on the voting machine on election day. So we've talked about travel board. We've talked about mail. We also have, and we're very lucky here in Lake County because we have 11 sites. I believe Marion County only has 1, and they're the largest county in the state. So we're second largest, but we have 11. So we have a number of different sites throughout the county where normally you would get to go and vote 29 days before the election. So the day after registration closes, early voting opens. Now, because of COVID in the primary, they reduced it down. We are anticipating for the general for it to be open those full days. On those dates, we are also open on Wednesday night usually, Thursday night till 6 p.m. for people that are maybe traveling and working outside the county, gives them a little bit extra time. And then the 2 Saturdays prior to election day, we're also open at those 2 at the satellite offices. And so when you go to the satellite office, you simply take your driver's license with you. You go in, it's like a normal polling place. You would present your identification. We look you up in the system, you sign in, and then you would vote on a voting machine, just as if you were at the polls on election day. And so there are like pretty much 4 different options for you: travel board, mail, satellite, and then in person on election day. And on election day, polls are open 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. When I talk about the photo identification, 4 parts: must have your face, looks like you, must have your name, issued by the state of Indiana or the U.S. government, and has not expired beyond the last general federal election, which was in 2018. And so those are things that you need to bring with you. If you were voting by mail or travel board, you don't need that photo identification. So for anyone who doesn't have it, hopefully you would meet one of the qualifications. One thing I would urge individuals to do, and this is a great visual that I will leave, and it talks about flattening the ballot request curve. And this was done by Common Cause, made this visual, and it's great. Because what it's showing here is just like in COVID, you don't want the spike, you want the nice equal hump here for people to apply, so that way the staff at the election board can keep up with the ballots. So for anyone who feels like they may need absentee, I encourage you to submit them early, so that way we begin to process them, and then you get them right away, starting after September 19th. Do you have questions for me?
Any questions?
Yes. Yeah, so on the outside of the envelope, there's a spot here for signature. And so the voter must sign that.
What you're saying is that my mom is 92.
Mhm.
So what you're saying is, okay, she would have signed this. Is there any other place that my mother?
She would have originally signed her absentee ballot application, and without a signature, we would have never sent the ballot. So once she signs the application and then she gets her ballot, she would sign here, and then it's fine.
Now, what did you say? If it doesn't match, it gets thrown out?
It could potentially be rejected. So our board members are the only ones that can reject a signature. So if it didn't appear to be the same, it potentially could be rejected. I will be mailing out notices probably next week to anyone who received a rejected ballot. That is not required by law, but I like to do it because if you make a mistake and I don't let you know you made a mistake, you may continue to make the same one. So we'll let every single person know who had a rejected ballot. We're going to let them know.
See, because I knew that this was mandatory, that my mom had to sign the outside. I'm not sure if she signed that or my sister signed it.
And that is her question, in case anyone couldn't hear it. She wasn't sure if her mom signed the application or her sister. Now, if her sister signed it, there's a good possibility that the signatures would not have matched. Your sister may have had your mom sign and then it assisted her, and then that would be fine. But yes, if the signatures don't match, she would get a notification.
I did not know, because I sent out to some of my church members and all. I didn't know that it was imperative because some of them have disabilities, they have difficulty with their hands. I didn't know it was imperative that they actually sign that and not have someone else to fill out the ballot, just asking to have something sent to their house.
And that's exactly why we're wanting to do what we're doing here today, is to get that message out that it is imperative that the same person signs the application and votes the ballot. And something we're going to be working on, COVID kind of made us do some stuff that we'd always wanted to do, but maybe didn't have time to do. So like for our purposes, we did training videos, a lot of training videos for our poll workers, because we didn't want them all in one room being close in proximity to each other to be trained. So we did a lot of training videos. And one of the next training videos that we're going to do is exactly on what we're discussing today, on showing how to apply, how to vote, and then once it's submitted to us, how it goes through the counting process even, so that way people understand how this actually works. So that is one of our newest videos that we're going to be probably completing within the next month, maybe month and a half. We definitely want it done probably by the end of August, so as people are applying. But if hers was to be rejected, you'll get notification probably within the next 2 weeks if it was rejected. We had maybe about 600 ballots out of 30,000 that were rejected. And so again, we want to notify them if they had a mistake on there of how to fix it for the future. When they come for travel board, they would sign the back of their form here instead. That's how we do it. Yes.
I have 2 questions. One is, okay, let's say I get the absentee, I ain't gonna know my thing. If I get the absentee and then I decide I'm gonna go to the poll. Will it show when I go to the poll that I got a absentee ballot?
Yes, so her question for anyone who couldn't hear is if she applied for the absentee ballot and then chose not to do it, will it show it at the polling place that she has already applied? Yes. It's going to say in there that you've already requested an absentee. Then if you do not have the ballot to forfeit to them, they're going to have you sign that ABS, the pre-5 form, I'm sorry, which would swear a test that you don't have that ballot anymore, you've never received it, or you've destroyed it. So a lot of times people get it and go, oh, I'm going to go vote at the polls, and they'll tear it up. And then when they go to the polls, they're like, you've already applied. You can fill out that PRE5, fill out the form, and then they would let you vote on the voting machine.
What is encouraged, there's this campaign to get people to absentee vote. And I know in my neighborhood, people got them, they never vote, they never sign. So what is to try to encourage people to, once they get that, to vote?
Great question. So her question is there's always a big campaign for people to vote absentee. And often there are people that don't ever return them. And on average, I have my stats from past election. No matter what the totals are, there's always about 4,000 that don't ever return it. It's a standard number about, of course, in 2008, that number went down to about 1,500. But otherwise, in most elections, it's about 4,000 people that don't do it. The election board mails out the ballot, but a lot of the candidates are on what they call a van system. Both the Democrat Party has one and the Republican Party has one. And what happens is the candidates can see through the system that you've applied and received a ballot. And a lot of times the candidates are going to be calling you up individually saying, hey, I'd like for you to vote for me. Or the party may be saying, hey, we know you've gotten a ballot, please vote it and return it to us right away. So more or less it's on the candidates that are really doing the follow-up of the encouragement to get those in. The election board sends it out, but it's always a big campaign to try to get people to do it. And it is a convenience of having it at your own home and turning it in, voting it in the privacy of your own time, figuring out who you want to vote for, and then submitting it. Now, this year's election, we all know presidential is going to be on the ballot. We know some state reps and we have some county offices and so forth. There's going to be some people on the ballot that you may not know, and those are going to be our judicial retention questions. And so one of the biggest obstacles that we're going to have this year is letting people know who's on your ballot. And you can go on to, if you have access to the internet, you can go on to indianavoters.com. And there's a tab that'll say who's on my ballot. So it looks you up, sees if you're a registered voter, tells you where your polling place is, and then you can see who's on your ballot. You can also look at our county website and it'll do the same exact thing. And as of right now, we don't know who's all on your ballot yet. We know the people that won in the primary are on for the general, but we are also going to have school boards up and they're still filing for office right now. And they have all the way until like August to file their candidacy. So we don't know who those candidates are yet, but it'll be important for individuals to look and see who's on my ballot. And I was on a conference call the other day and I loved it. One of the persons said, you know, their theme this year is going to be make a plan. We all make a plan when we go to the grocery store. We make up our grocery list of what are we buying. It also should be make a plan for voting. Make a plan and how can we vote?
This question is for,
Yes.
are the council people going to distribute blank slates so people can look at them? Because last election, I know I was looking in the newspaper and trying to find them.
Carol Ann Seaton is the captain of the precinct organization for the 5th district. She can answer that question. You asking about us giving slates out? The slates come from the precinct organization. Whoever we endorse through the precinct organization, then it.
I mean, that list the whole, you know, that back in the day, you had a blank ballot and you run. Right, you see who's running, that's what I'm. For, you know, and then.
Precinct
Like
organization.
Newspaper.
Right.
It was in the newspaper, but it was everybody, not just who we endorsed. She got one of those. But it was everyone who was on the ballot.
You have that list, correct?
Well, there's two different things. So there is the slate, which is usually used in a primary election because you'll have a whole lot of people running for one office from a political party. And so the slate, in its technical term, is a primary election. And a lot of times the precinct organizations are going to hand that out saying, out of the 5 candidates, this is who we encourage you to vote. Coming into a general election, a lot of times the political parties aren't doing per se slates. They're telling you more or less vote straight party. But you can take in a list of the candidates from the newspaper, and we encourage you to do it because sometimes the ballot is lengthy. And so if you need a cheat sheet or a reminder of who you want to vote for, by all means, you can take that into a voting machine with you.
You gotta have it.
Correct. So sometimes the political parties are sending those out, but not always in a general.
Are power of attorney papers needed to assist with helping an individual or family member vote?
There were 2 different numbers, and her number was one thing in here, and another one in like Chicago or something. And if you were to and that was confusing because that was really different in Chicago. And I think he stated to me because they had that radio. If you got someone you know, or girlfriend or anyone that lives over there, and there's a referendum, the president's number might be totally different. So my mom was doing the absentee ballot. She had spoken to someone on the phone that she knew very well, and told me a different number from her number. So, and as you know, if you remember the incident, I came over to the dentist and I asked Linda took me to try to get some clarity as to what that number is. So, it might be a referendum, our way.
Correct.
Yes.
If there is a referendum, if that same issue comes to the referendum, where might be different from her husband's number in Chicago because we have a referendum.
Is that the only question, or did you want to do 2 questions?
Yeah, that was the key one.
Okay. So when you have the ballot, yes, the numbers could be different. Keep in mind that there is only a number associated with absentee voting by mail. On the actual voting machine, if you were voting satellite, travel board, or on election day, there are no numbers whatsoever on the voting machine. The number is strictly so that you can match it up on the card for voting by mail. And the way the ballot is laid out is public questions come first now. In the old days, they used to be the last thing. They now come first. So yes, if there was a public question on the Gary ballot this year, the number for presidential candidates potentially could be different for you and Gary versus someone in Hammond. This past election for Congress, we had 15 candidates. And in some areas where there was a Hanover public school question, they were one number, and in the rest of the county, they were another number. And so yes, based on the ballot of where you live, those numbers could be different. We encourage candidates not to use numbers, to go more by name than by number. Because if you fall farther down the ballot, say recorder, coroner, surveyor, your number, you could have a lot of different numbers, because based on, were there 2 candidates for state rep? Was there only 1 state rep? Did you have a Senate running? Did you have different races run at different times? So everyone's ballot is slightly different.
And I guess the next one I can ask you, the voting, you're saying that when you receive the absentee ballot, you will begin to count as opposed to waiting?
No, no. Her question was, is when we receive the ballots, do we begin counting them? We do not count the ballots until election day. We receive the ballot. When it comes to us in the mail, we pull their application back out of our file cabinet. We put the 2 together. We go ahead and look at it, initial signature, glance, make sure it looks good. We then put this together, and it is held till election day. Nothing is counted until election day. That is the first we open them.
In 2018, I took some training, and they stated that the ballots would not be counted unless it was a very close, narrow election. Then they would count the ballots.
That is untrue. So her question, so that everyone can hear, stated that in 2008, was it?
I think it was 2018.
Oh, 2018.
And someone asked, would they be counting ballots? And perhaps people are laying it here correctly, but I thought that's why I was making sure I'm clarifying with you, that the ballots will be counted, whether it's close or not.
100%, every single ballot that comes in is accounted and reviewed, and it's either accepted or it's rejected. But every single ballot, regardless if the election is close or not, and in most cases, we have a good majority of them scanned in by 6 p.m. So when the polls close, we can't release any totals until 6 p.m. because you can never sway that they're scanned in and they're held like in a holding pattern. And then at 6 p.m., we release totals for whatever absentees we have at that point in time. And then when the totals come in from the individual precincts, they're added to that. So every single ballot, whether you vote by mail, travel board, in person, or at the poll, if you're voting at the polls, all those, every single one of them is accounted for. You're welcome.
Any other questions?
Hi, Carolyn.
Yes, Michelle, thank you for coming. 2 things. One, you said that you're going to start sending them out August,
No, September.
September 19th.
I believe that was the date. Where's my
That's
key?
a Saturday.
Yes, by law, that is the date that we have to put them in the mail. Now, if we are complete and done before that, they could potentially go a little bit earlier, but September 19th is the deadline, which I believe is 45 days before the election, is the deadline when anything we've received to that point in time must go in the mail at that point in time. And then every day thereafter, whenever we get the applications, we process them and the bail goes in the mail at the same exact day. Now, one thing with COVID, it slowed things up a little bit because we are getting in 3,000 applications a day. Whatever we accepted and processed that day went out that day. Our average number was about 800 to 900 on any given day. So we were working Saturdays, we were working some Sundays, we were working 12-hour shifts all during COVID. We were considered essential workers and we were there and working. And so we would process about 800 to 900, get them out. Some days we got as high as 1,500. It all just depended on, did you have a full staff? Was someone off sick that day and so forth. But as soon as we receive it in and we accept it, that ballot goes out the same exact day after September 19th. Every day they go out.
When you're, the training video would be great. Will they be on the website and then anyone can go in and look at, or do we have to request them?
No, we will, as soon as we are done, her question was, is the training videos. So all of our poll worker training videos are currently on our website where you can click on them and go do that. Same thing is going to hold true for this absentee. As soon as we get it done, It'll be on our website and people can just go there and share it. If you have a function you're doing, you could simply put it up on the screen and show it. It'll be readily available for everyone.
For our absentee, for people from my committee who are so great, will they be using the absentee ballot, the absentee application to be used for the primary, or do we go back to the old?
The one that we had for the primary was strictly for the primary election because it was a no fault reason. The State Election Commission has not met and stated if we will have that again for the general. So as of right now, use the new one for the general election. If the one you had from the primary had reasons, you can use that one. Which also brings up another good point. You must apply per election. The only ones are our military individuals who can apply on a federal FPCA, a federal postcard application. They are the only ones that can apply for both a primary and general at the same time. Every person, individuals, you have to apply for them every single election. A lot of times, one of our most common questions is, I got one in the primary, why didn't you send it to me for the general? You must apply. And there will be a lot of the parties and a lot of the candidates will be mailing these out to individuals on behalf of the party and so forth. So you may get some of those.
So it will be the old one, not the one that we use for the primary.
Right.
Okay. Question. That is probably caused the most confusion. If in fact you do not have a pencil, number 2 pencil, and you fill it out with an ink pen, even though it says it must be with a number 2 pencil, it will be counted?
Yes, we've tested it on the machines and we've run the scan cards into the reader. And whenever we are reading cards, it's always 2 people, a Democrat and Republican, and they are scanning the cards in. If it was to come up saying no card read, they would take a pencil over it. But for most intent and purposes, the machine will capture the ink. You can never use red though. Don't ever use red. It won't pick up red.
So it has to be black?
You can use black and it will, we've tested on black and blue and it's come up on both of them. So if you didn't have a pencil in your house, do the ink, machine should pick it up. If it for some reason was not to pick it up, the 2 counters would take it over to a board member. The board member would take a pencil and go over the ink spots and then we would read it through again. The standards for the protocol for the system is that it's in a pencil, but I know that scares people. People are like, is someone going to erase it? Is anything going to happen? So if it makes them feel better, do it in ink. Try to go over it in pencil, but if you don't have a pencil, the machines, we've tested it and it's come up fine.
But we do have to do ink, not gel pen, not
Yeah.
gel.
Don't do the gels because the gel a lot of times is going to go through the paper and sometimes be marking things on the back side. You could have an extremely large ballot and where we're actually using numbers on the back side and it could bleed through to there. So I would use just a preference is pencil. If they were to do it in ink, don't worry, it will still be okay. Yes, ma'am.
The yellow, for the travel,
Mhm.
what are the dates for that? Could you give me that, please?
Sure.
I have some friends who are doing it.
Okay. It goes all the way up until noon the day before election, and I believe it is 15 days before. Let me look at my calendar, which I have on here somewhere. There it is. Okay, we will start October 15th, which is a Thursday. It's the first day that we will vote a voter who is confined at their private residence or facility. So October 15th, all the way until noon, the day before, is when we'll go out and vote them. You can submit this at any point in time, though. You can submit it now. I brought some extras for us. They are also on our website. And no, for anyone, we do a great outreach program, and I think we're the only county in the entire state that does this. We contact the state health departments every year, every election. They give us a complete listing of every nursing home, hospital, assisted living facility in Lake County. We do an outreach program to them where we mail them out voter registration cards for anyone who is newly come into their facility and they can register, and then they'll help them fill out the absentee ballot applications, and they'll fax or email them to us. And then we usually set up a date, and we'll go out there all on one date and vote everyone at that facility. Some residents, my grandmother was one of them, never wanted to go into a nursing home. She always liked keeping her home address. It was always her goal, going back home. And that's fine too. They can keep their home address, and they can just fill in that they want you to vote them here at the facility. So they don't have to lose their home residence if they don't want to. If they're going into this long term, then by all means, register at the facility. But it's not mandatory.
What's the address of your website?
www.lakecountyin.org. Thank you for asking. You can also call into our office at area code 755-375, and they will be happy to mail you out any applications, whether it's be to register to vote or to vote by absentee. And for a lot of us right now, as our kids might be preparing to go off to college, make sure you get their absentee in early and go ahead and list what their dormitory is going to be down at school, or if they're coming home, you can have it sent to their home. But right now is a really good time before the kids start getting ready to go back to college to get them to fill out the absentee application. So if you know of some recently graduated seniors, have them fill out and apply early. Yes.
Yes, when I heard in on video, you stated that some of the absentee ballots came right after the election.
Yes.
So what will, I missed it because I'm late and I'm going late. So what is the deadline that, people that are working in everything really need to know in to ensure that it does meet Lake County at the proper.
It's a good question, and there's no really set number. Her question is she had heard me on the radio before stating that various ballots came to us too late. So as I stated earlier, we go to the post office a little bit before noon on election day, and we pick up everything they have and we bring back to our office. Now, if something came in the mail later at that day, like 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock, it is considered too late. So her question was, what is the best time frame for getting something in? I would try to give at least, like when people are getting their training cards, we always say give it 5 to 7 days to get there. I would use that as a rule of thumb. We know that we don't have our sorting facility in Gary like we used to have. All of our mail is going to Illinois first, and then it's coming back. And so when they say snail mail, it kind of really is snail mail. Give yourself ample time to submit it. And again, if you're getting close to that deadline and it's 2 days from the election, you're going, is it going to make it or not? Either one, bring it into our office, or two, consider taking that to the polling place and forfeiting it there, just so that we ensure that it gets counted. And you can always go on too, on that portal that we talked about earlier, that indianavoters.com, you can track your ballot. So if you applied, and it was great because in the primary, you can apply online, your ballot would come to you, and you can look on there and you would see when it was mailed out, and then if it was received, when it was received. So it's a great tool to use during the election, and that's indianavoters.com. There's also a thing you can contact your local post office. I don't have all the information on it, but you can contact your post office and sign up, and it's going to tell you every single day. You can see a picture of what's coming in your mail even. Informed voter, is that what I mean? Informed mail? That does sound right. And that's a great thing to get too, so that way you can see exactly when your ballot's coming to you. But don't procrastinate. Don't wait. When you get your stuff in the mail, if you know who you're voting for, fill it out, sign it, and send it in as quickly as possible. It all just gets held until election day. And then you got peace of mind knowing that it counted. And again, early voting locations, they were fabulous. I worked a couple of them and helped out at the government center, and there was really hardly any lines whatsoever.
Okay, do we have any other questions? Do we have any from the participants? We don't. Okay. Well, I would like to thank Ms. Feynman for coming out this afternoon, and sharing this valuable information with us. I would like to thank the participants on the Zoom for participating, and I would really like to thank all the ones that came out today. Perhaps we'll have another meeting soon this year. Again, thank you for coming out, and I hope you got something that would help you in your voting process. Thank you.